part of what's going on, everyone, is that we're not at home. Happy holidays, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. We spent this we spent Thanksgiving with my mom and dad, which is tradition. We always come to Georgia for Thanksgiving, or we have since for a while. Even when we were like just dating, we went to New Orleans that year for Thanksgiving. It's kind of like a thing for us. So anyways, we're here in my mother's office. If I gave you guys a tour, you would see many pictures of me as a wee little one. Nike is sitting here. We're hoping he doesn't terrorize us throughout the whole episode. So we're a little uncomfortable because we're not in our normal digs. But we're happy to be here. I had a great Thanksgiving. Did you have a good Thanksgiving, honey?
I did. I had a great Thanksgiving. It was great. I have no complaints.
Shout out to mom and the food though, because
it's always on point.
It's always on point. It's always super good food, and we had great conversation. And my brother is here. He came and popped up on us yesterday, and
Monty's here with us.
Monty's here, and just a lot of laughter and love and happiness. Love and happiness.
So we hope everybody at home had a great Thanksgiving. We hope that you had a great time with family or friends, and if you didn't have a great Thanksgiving, we hope that you are doing the things necessary to be okay and be happy and,
yes,
find your peace, and I hope that love and joy and happiness and peace finds you. And it's the holiday season. It's a great time for many of us, but for some people it's
not.
It's a sad time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of grief, and so I like to try to be as conscious of that as I possibly can, and
mm-hmm.
sensitive to that too. So
same. And I think that the world is just becoming a more conscious place, because I'm seeing like posts on Facebook that'll say the same things, like, take care of yourself. If you have issues with your family, do your best to take care of you and prioritize yourself. So even if it's not Thanksgiving, you should be doing that. Amen. And we're down with that, but I'm happy to be here. It's another episode. This is episode 27 of Elevate the Conversation. We're 2 episodes from our we had our celebration a couple episodes ago, which was really sweet and really nice. And we thank all of you for sending us well wishes and just basically talking with us about the fact that we've done 25 episodes. So now we're at 27 and we're racing toward 52 will be a year of Elevate the Conversation, and that is a triumph. So we're excited. We're happy to be here. And you got some plans in Atlanta today, honey?
Yeah, me and Imani are going to go and hang out later this afternoon and just have some sister time and some Atlanta time. Typically, so for those that don't know, our house is in Noonan, and our parents' house is in Noonan. Noonan is about 45 minutes from Atlanta, downtown Atlanta, about
right.
25 minutes from the airport. So when we come to Noonan, and even when we lived down here 100% of the time, we would spend our time in Noonan, and it would be like a whole trip, that would have to happen for us to go to Atlanta, and hang out and make sure we're being safe and things of that nature. So me and Imani are gonna go this afternoon, and we're gonna do brunch. Well, it's not really brunch, but we're gonna hang out, and then we're hitting the road tomorrow. So back to Milwaukee.
Yeah, and I want to say, wow, you and Imani both did a wonderful job driving. I don't know if it's lack of trust for my driving or.
Why would you say that on here?
Well, when I offered to drive, y'all both was like, no.
Well, honey, no. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Me and Imani are used to driving
long distances
across the country.
Okay,
things of that nature.
makes a lot of sense.
And I just know from being with you for, the better part of a decade at this point.
Facts.
That you're just not used to driving long distances. So it's okay. So if we're going to drive to Chicago or we're going to drive to even Indianapolis, you can knock that out. But a 13-hour drive, and us splitting it,
Yeah, you guys did a wonderful job. I was
know.
like, really. So you guys, just so you know, my job was Nike, and he's actually a job.
You may have a little bit more duties on the way back home though, because Monty has to work on
Right.
Monday morning.
So I'm going to. Am I going to start us off?
I haven't decided yet.
Okay, let me know.
Yeah.
But either way, you guys, I sit in the back and I take care of Nike, who is, for all intents and purposes, a toddler. So
Yeah, he's a happy.
he doesn't like the car, and so that in itself is like a thing. But yeah, we had a good time. I think we had good conversation. I really appreciate that we have the kind of fight, like, me, you, and Monty are a family.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, so there's like, we're part of, obviously, there's our parents and there's whatever, but like, because me, you, and Monty live in Milwaukee together, we are a little family, right?
Yeah.
And what I like is we not that we always agree or that it's always like tra la la, rainbows and unicorns, but we just know how to like be with each other and be really, and it's mostly a just wonderful time. Even when we don't agree, even when we have tense moments, we're family, and so we just get it. And so
they say that you marry someone that has a very distinct similarity to someone that you
like, you're a family member.
Yes.
So you married Monty.
Basically.
Yeah, because Monty and I are very
basically
we have a lot of similarities.
I said that to say, like, that's the reason. From the beginning, I remember the first time y'all met, y'all was in New Orleans, y'all were talking. I'm like,
yeah, we
they
like
acting like they best friends.
Yeah,
for me, I love it because
we're cool.
not the case.
We have a relationship outside of you.
I know
that we've had to like work on, like no, for real. Like, and I think that sometimes that's what ends up hurting families, is they don't understand that it's just like any other relationship outside of your family, where you really have to be intentional. And Monty and I have been like intentional with our relationship. I think
your little sister,
100%. And I've never had a younger sibling, so that's like a whole thing. But we've definitely, I think on both of our sides, we've definitely worked on like communicating with each other, because we worked together, and that was a traumatic experience. So not because of us, but because of like the outside influence. And we came through that together, and I'm very proud of where our relationship is. But I just find you guys to be a really fun time. So it was cool. It was a good ride. I kept being like, honey, are you okay? You were like, I'm fine. You're like, I'm fine. And I'm like rubbing your back, and you're like, honey,
I'm fine.
I'm fine. I'm like, I kept waking up to be like, honey.
Yeah. The drive back home will be easy because it's mostly sunlight. We'll have sunlight most of the time. The drive here, that's the first time we've ever actually truly drove overnight. We've said we were going to do it, but we never do. We always wake up late, but we had to.
Well, no, we did when we came here to close on the house.
No.
We left that night, honey.
We've never driven overnight.
We did, but okay. Anyways, we left that night.
Honey.
We did. But either way.
What we did was we left at like 3 a.m, and we got here, or like 1 a.m, and we got there and it was light. No, we left at 7 p.m.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. We've never done that, and drove where the entire drive was dark.
Yeah.
It got light for us at, when we were on that drive, it got light halfway through.
There's something about driving that I really like, and let me tell you what it is. You don't have to deal with like that whole situation of like, the airport is more convenient. It's more convenient to fly, but it's like the getting to the airport, the renting of a car, like there's so many things that happen, and you and I spend a lot of time in airports. It's to me, the drive to Atlanta, I love it because it's like you just go right to your destination. I mean, I know that you have to do the driving.
This coming from somebody
who doesn't in the back. Yeah. You guys,
but no, in retrospect, I like it. It cut costs, obviously, because you have your car, you don't have to rent a car, you don't have to pay for a flight, and gas is, you pay for gas. So it equates to us spending, what one of us may spend on a round trip flight in gas, but there's 3 of us, so it's like, yes,
exactly.
Plus the dog, we got to pay for the dog to come or pay to board him, but we wanted him to see his grandparents, and he wanted to see his grandparents. So
yeah, and they'll get mad at us if they don't see him. So that's the last thing I'm going to say before we start the episode is that no matter what the species of the grandchild, grandparents are still the same. Nike is very spoiled when he is at his grandparents' house. His grandma, Nana, gives him treats and table food, and if she'll ask me to give him some of my food if I'm eating, and she wants him to have whatever he wants, and he goes and he kicks it with her. They like cuddle up together. And when we were living here, Nike was like, he was the grandchild who would get dropped off if we were gonna go kick it. We didn't want him to be by himself. He would come and spend his time with Nana, and they have their whole situation. So grandparents are all the same, you guys. It doesn't matter the species of the grandchild. So Nike has been having a good time. Well, having said that, my name is Joy Daniels. I'm your host with the most.
And I'm Chelsea Daniels.
And this is Elevate the Conversation. You know, I remember saying to you, I think it was last night, I was like, I'm kind of tired of talking about negative things on the podcast because I'm such a positive person. And you were like, what are we going to make positive stuff up? If that's not what's going on in the world, then we have to talk about what's going on in the world. And that's, I think, part of the difficult part of this podcast is because we speak about society and culture, we have to speak about it as it is. I believe the protest is in us continuing to be happy and joyful and peaceful and still hopeful and still being the change that we want to see.
Yeah.
And that's part of what this podcast is about. So y'all, I'm not going to lie to you. It's a very disappointing news cycle this week. Yeah. And I had hoped that after we had the whole Cassie and Diddy episode that we'd be able to kind of like move away from some of that. But unfortunately, this week was another reckoning of a lot of different things that went on. So before we jump into one nuance at a time, of course, we're going to get to I really like. And I only really had one thing that I really liked this week. Actually, two things. Did you have anything?
Go ahead.
So we watched Tyler Perry's documentary with my parents a couple of days ago. The name of it is Maxine's Baby. I think it's like the Tyler Perry story, Maxine's Baby. Let me tell you the number one thing I loved about it. First of all, Nike, stop it. First of all, I understood him better. Like as a creative, as a director, as a writer, like I got him. Like I was like, okay, I get your art a little bit more than I did before. But the thing that I love the most about this documentary and I respected the most is that he invited people who disagree with him onto the documentary to talk about the things about him that are problematic. And when you're trying to do something like a documentary about yourself, you obviously want what you want to get out about you is you want people to understand you well, but you could be obsessed about like painting a certain picture of yourself. I didn't get that from this documentary. I got that he really wanted us to see from every angle who Tyler Perry is, who he's been, and his impact on the culture. And one of the things I loved is, I love Spike Lee. He's one of my favorite directors. And Spike Lee had negative things to say about him, but ended up like going to his, the opening of his studio, and like he was like proud of him and happy for him. And so it's like, it shows this complexity and the dynamic of I cannot agree with you, or maybe even I can feel like, you know what, I would never do my art the way you do yours, but I still respect you and I respect what you've done. And that's honestly where I sit with Tyler Perry. Like The Family That Prays, I love that movie. You're more of a fan of his than I am. And I have been critical of certain things about his art. But I'm happy that I walked away from it with a better understanding. And I'm also happy he was not delusional about who he is and what people feel about him. Like to have 5 people come on your documentary and just talk shit about you. I thought that was just like, my mother was like, oh.
Yeah, we was all looking like, I mean, I feel like, and it shows why I love, why I'm such a fan. Because I've always seen that, because, like Amani was telling you, we grew up watching his plays. Like that was a part of, to be honest, a lot of Christian households. That
Same.
you know,
Same.
it was a thing where I think one Christmas my mom bought me all of his literally all of his plays for Christmas. Like we grew up watching those because of the message.
He's like a part of the fabric of Black American experience.
Yeah. And like my dad, I remember him not really being a fan of it.
Yeah.
But then when you sit down and you watch kind of what is happening, he is depicting what happens in the Black household, what happens in the Black church, what happens for Black people at work, and tying it all together with this good message. So for me, I've steered away from being critical of him because it's hard to be ignorant to the negative that people feel about you when you're a man in a dress and that's how you make your money. Do you get what I'm saying? Like you can't really be
good point
naive
good
to
point.
that.
Good
you
point.
can't be ignorant to it.
Yeah.
So he's been dealing with that over and over and over again for the last 20 years. So I've always been at the sentiment of this man is dealing with so much criticism and so much negativity, but he's still putting out he's still making an
he
impact.
still executes on a high level.
Exactly.
And my criticism of him has been, Mr. Tyler Perry, I love you, but I'm gonna say what my criticism has been. My criticism of him has been that he hasn't he executes at a high level. He hasn't invited other people into his creative process, which I would really love.
Mm-hmm.
Like a show like Sisters there's no women in the writing room, and I hate that.
Yeah.
But I get it. Like you love the show, a lot of people love the show. I've also watched the show, but when he discussed it on the documentary and he talked about him playing with his little cars in a kitchen full of women and him, having that perspective of what it was like and how they would make each other laugh and how they would support each other. I thought that was actually a really beautiful thing. So, one thing I will say about him is that every single time I hear him talk or he talks about his journey or I just see him like being himself, I'm proud. Mm-hmm. Like no matter what I think about his movies, his whatever, every single time I see him do anything, he could just be walking and I'm like, look at that man. I'm so proud of him. I feel like you're right. He's a part of the Black American fabric. Like he is like a part of our American, I hate to say American dream, but like he's an example of that. And I mean, it'll just be like a random Thursday and like we'll be in the kitchen and I'll look at you and I'll be like, trying to make it back against the wind. Like there are so many cultural moments that he's provided, and that is joy, and that in itself, like I said, joy, Black love, Black creativity is in itself a protest. Right. So I'm always gonna be down with that. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, and I feel like the level that he is, like he's surpassed so many greats.
Facts.
So many. So I appreciate it. I appreciate him allowing his naysayers and the negative commentary into the documentary because it just shows like I'm not naive to it and I know what people are saying, but I can also understand from a excellence mindset when you spend so many years trying to be involved with other people and trying to be in the circle with other people and it not working, and then the moment you start doing everything yourself, it works. It's like
I get
it's hard to.
Well, hyper independence is a trauma response. We get that,
right.
But for him, it's just continued to work, and he's never had. Like I think I saw this was like a couple years ago or 3 years ago. Remember when he went on Instagram and he showed all the scripts that he had written that week, and it was like 100. Like it was some crazy number of scripts that he had written in 1 week, and I was like, this is what he does.
I feel like though with his son getting older, we're going to start to see, if he wants to continue to be as excellent as he has been, we're going to start to see more people being involved, because once you bring a kid into the picture, you're involved in the kid, like in the kid's
and he's
life.
in his life.
There's you can't do everything anymore. Like there's no way, So I'm interested to see, because I'm a fan. I love Sisters. I love some of the series that he's put out, but I'm also an OG Madea fan, and that was honestly I really like too. I really did like the documentary.
Yeah, it was great. So guys, check that out. It's on Amazon Prime. That I really like that. The other thing that I really like this week, Yebba has me in a chokehold. I did not listen to For All the Dogs, which is Drake's album. And so because I did not listen, I did not know that on the last song on For All the Dogs, there's a sample of Yebba from this song called Waterfall. And I guess Drake went on Instagram and demanded that she released the whole song. So he sampled a song that none of us had heard before. So he went on Instagram and was like, look, Yebba, you got to do this for the one time for the people. You need to release this song. So she released it because he said. And when I tell you I listened to that thing 40 times when we was in the car, I mean, I don't know that I have immense love for Yeb, and I think she's extremely talented as a vocalist. But as a writer and the quality of her production and the sonic quality of what she's doing musically, I don't know that we've heard anything like this for a while. Like the only thing I can compare it to probably for me is when D'Angelo came out for the second time. Obviously, we know Voodoo was great, but I'm talking about when D'Angelo came out for the second time after all of those years. And he came out with an album, and I remember listening and going, oh my God, the quality of what he's doing. Like people getting in a studio with instruments and that vibe that you create with live instruments, it's a lost art. Obviously, people are still doing it in jazz. People are still doing it in rock. Like in certain genres, they're still doing it. But what dominates the radio is not live.
Right. Yeah. It hasn't been that for a long time.
It hasn't been that, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is there's this quality of what she does that just reminds me of like Anita Baker. Just, it's such a full and lush sound. So anyway, the song is called Waterfall. Y'all go check that out. I fell in love. I heard it 15 times and I was like, this writing. She's also Yebba's an incredible songwriter. So those are the two things I liked this week. It really wasn't much. I had to find some bright spots in what was just so much negativity over the past 2 weeks. But you have anything you like, honey?
No, I did really like the Tyler Perry documentary. I really like the Thanksgiving food that we had. Thank you.
I really like Thanksgiving food. Yeah.
Thanksgiving was great. It's Black Friday. So I'll talk about that in Soft Spaces though.
Got it.
Well, it was Black Friday yesterday.
It was Black Friday yesterday. I did all of my shopping online. I have a problem with designer clothes.
No, you don't.
I don't have a problem. I feel like
you're finally just getting yourself.
I'm starting to,
and that's all.
Yeah, I'm starting to spend a little bit more money on my designer stuff,
that's
and
okay. Don't shame yourself for it. It's okay.
I don't know that I'm shaming myself from it. I just feel like I'm taking a lot of. I've never had this in my life, and that's maybe something we should talk about in Soft Spaces. Yeah. I've never had it in my life where I've been able to like do things for myself, and yeah. So I got myself some pieces.
Yeah, so trust me, if it was a problem, you would know because I would tell you. It ain't no problem.
I do have a wife that tells me if things are a problem. Cool. Let's move on to the next segment. Well, this week was trash. Throw the whole week out. Throw the whole past 2 weeks out. For real.
Honestly, the year. Throw away the last, since 2020.
Throw away
all the years away. Life hasn't felt like it's been pleasurable amongst the masses since before the pandemic. And I was thinking about that yesterday. I'm like, I feel like life has been interesting. Every aspect of life has been interesting since 2020. From social media to entertainment to scandals to the economy to navigating everyday life as a regular person to what we see on TV to people in their just boredom and how they sit and analyze things and post every single thought in their head that should be left
but that's
for the
also
private. Everything is
but
a hot
that's
mess.
Also like that's also part of the larger conversation I want to have with you is my thought process around what the hell has been going on in our world over the past 3 years. Because we can take all of these small incidents, like everything you just said is obviously an amalgam. Like what I want to talk about is the amalgamation of all of those things. Like what is it good or bad? Like that's what I want to kind of determine over this episode because I think some of it is good. I think that I 100% believe that people have been walking around as zombies for many years, up until the pandemic, doing exactly what they were told, doing it how they were told to do it, doing it in a certain way. And now there's all this information available. And I think what we're just seeing is the explosion of, oh, now people are acting on the information they have. I'm going to just give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
Previous to the pandemic, working remotely was like a thing, but it wasn't widely accepted. It was like certain companies did it. I would say the tech industry was really good at remote work, but everyone else was kind of just like it happens. But the model of corporate work was you bring your ass into that office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. The pandemic happens. It forces all of the employees into they're at home working, and somewhere along the line, businesses started seeing the benefits of that.
Right.
The businesses that wanted to, at least, they started going, oh, we don't have to pay for space anymore. Oh, like we can get more work out of you. You're more productive when you're at home. Also, on the workers' end, workers start going, I'm not working unless it's remote, because I can wash my clothes while I'm on this video call. I can take care of my kids while I'm on this video call. I can have a better quality of life. So I feel like up until the pandemic, everybody was just going along with like, oh, this is just the way it is. Right. And then we had a complete paradigm shift. It was also people who were like, pandemic came, they lost their job, they never went back. They're like, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur now. Oh, I don't have to work 9 to 5. I can find ways of making money online, because they had to, right? Their back was against the wall and they figured it out. Right. So I think there's been a paradigm shift, but along with the paradigm shift, I think comes the negative side of it. And so
I think there's two. So if we just start there, let's start there first before we.
Sure.
So if you look at the positive aspects of how that affects the world, I think it is great for people to and for better words, take control of their own life. That's kind of what it seems like it is. People are the pandemic forced people to take their lives into their own hands, and I think that's a great thing. But when we think about the economy, businesses have suffered.
They have. You're absolutely right.
There's no employees. I can't tell you how many times I'm trying to go to like a Dollar Tree or like a fast food restaurant, and for years, and even still, a lot of them now will have signs on the door that say we don't have enough workers, so we have to close. And that was a thing. So it's like there's a I guess there's 2020. What do they say?
Hindsight is 2020.
Because I think that it really is important to see the nuance in all of this, because yes, I believe that it is positive and negative. I believe that it's great for people who needed that extra fire up under them to start that business or to start that venture, because let's be clear, if you have the entrepreneurial seed inside of you, then yeah, it's very clear that you don't need someone else to tell you how you can make your money and give you an opportunity. Correct. Right?
Yes.
But the negative side of it is that the world still does need businesses, and businesses do still need employees. So we do still need people who, want to work.
We need the mailman. We need everybody.
Exactly.
But what it is that businesses and structures and corporate entities don't want to shift.
Well, so that was what I was going to say next.
Right.
So what I'm seeing in 2023 is that businesses are having no choice but to raise their pay. Give better benefits.
You get what
I'm saying? Like it's starting to, the positive effect around the board is, I believe, starting to happen. I'm seeing, more companies that are coming forward and offering benefits and things of that nature that, and I'm not talking about corporate. I'm talking about the non-traditional, non-degree people, which is majority of the people in the world. Like, let's be clear.
Right.
Most people are not degreed. Most people don't have the privilege and the benefit of having letters behind their name.
Right.
So those were the people who were considered, were working those essential type of jobs and still having to work during the pandemic and all of these things. And those were the ones, to be honest, that were forced into entrepreneurship, self-employment, things of that nature. And I think that once you light that type of fire under someone, the companies had to start proven why
Of course,
there's benefit.
they had to meet people halfway, because it's like, yes, you're paying me for a service, but the relationship was still not reciprocal.
Right.
And I think, I've, in my corporate career, I've been like, okay, yeah, like the pay is not enough, babe, because we can go get pay anywhere, but there has to be something more here, right? And so I hear you. Like, I think it's a double-edged sword, I guess. But both can exist at the same time, where it's like there's so much good going on, but also there's so much bad going on. And I think, we've talked before about, like, if certain scandals happen while there was no internet, nobody would care and nobody would know about it. But because the internet brings attention to it, more people are in the know, so on and so forth. And also we have portable video cameras. So if somebody's doing something wrong, without the internet, I can just bring that, press record, and now I've got the whole thing on candid camera, so to speak. This week, I think last week and a week before, and this is why I'm saying it's so many incidents happening. So in 3 episodes, we discussed Kiki Palmer and her baby daddy and their domestic violence situation. The following week, we discussed Cassie and Diddy and their domestic violence situation. And now here we are this week, where there have been two people who have come forward to accuse Diddy of not abuse, but SA and grape. Jamie Foxx was also accused of SA. And I'm, starting to be on TikTok a little bit more because of the music stuff that I'm doing. And there's a lot of conversations going around about, like, oh, the truth is about to start coming out about all of the black kind of hip hop moguls, so to speak. And so what I wanted to do this episode is revisit the Me Too movement, which started in 2017 by Teyana Burke, a black woman. And as a part of the Me Too movement, which largely was on the internet, right?
Yeah.
Hashtag Me Too, this is what happened, so on and so forth. As a result of that, I read a New York Times article, and I will link that New York Times article in the.
So this was it was formed in response to Harvey Weinstein.
So the way I understand the Me Too movement, and y'all
I'm looking it up now.
Look it up.
It says Me Too movement. What is the purpose of the Me Too movement? Me Too movement, awareness movement around the issue of sexual harassment and sexual abuse of women in the workplace that grew to prominence in 2017 in response to news reports of sexual abuse by American film producer Harvey Weinstein.
So I think that the movement got co-opted by the Harvey Weinstein situation and white folks. However, Teyana Burke, a black woman, she was the one who actually started it via hashtag, and I believe that she was the first one to I don't think she has nothing to do with Harvey Weinstein. Right. So she was just talking about her experience being a survivor. Right. But the movement got co-opted. Y'all let me know in the comments if I'm right. But the way I saw it was the movement got co-opted by kind of things that were happening with Harvey Weinstein and others. But the big one obviously was Harvey Weinstein. Y'all, Nike's acting a fool. And so I guess again, I'm gonna link this article in the comments because I read through it and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know. But because of the Me Too movement and people being exposed, 201 prominent people. Now there's more people in less prominent, positions in life. Who lost their jobs too. But the New York Times article was specifically about like celebrities, executives at these big companies. Like it was more about like those kind of people. 201 people. I say people because there are some women in there. were removed from their job or resigned as a result of allegations of misconduct, including but not limited to sexual harassment, SA, and rape. Okay. Of the 201, there's 3 women on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And of the 201, I think I counted 7 or 8 black people, including Russell Simmons, Morgan Freeman, and a couple other like sports newscaster type folks. Their names are not important. Mm-hmm. And I was reading through this and I thought, because obviously what's happening with this New York survivors law that's going on, I kind of started asking myself, why was hip hop removed from this, right? And Tarana Burke being a black woman, right?
Well, so okay, I don't mean to cut you off, but so her experience was in the workplace, right?
I believe her original. I don't quote me, but I believe her situation was in the workplace. Yeah.
Yeah, because now that, as I know we was talking about it this morning, but now that we've like kind of looked at the kind of origin of it, and I don't think it was removed from hip hop. I think that it just didn't originate in hip hop. It originated in the corporate space. So originated in the corporate space, like those are two totally different.
Well, it was
worlds.
Entertainment industry, because you remember Harvey Weinstein was a movie
right,
producer.
But we're talking about the corporate, the inner workings of the business. We're not talking about the artists and the people who are, you know what I'm saying? Like, because we know that there's a whole business side to entertainment that has nothing, like those people aren't talented. They're literally business.
They're suits.
Exactly.
Correct.
So we're still talking about the corporate world, and it's not what I think. I think that because it didn't originate there, that's why I don't think it was left out. I just think that it wasn't, now it's not like, now let's say Cassie or someone was to start a movement. You get what I'm saying?
Which to be honest, now let me say this. The producer, his name is Detail. Mm-hmm. He's serving 50 years.
That's the Kesha guy?
I forgot his name, but Luke somebody. That's not him.
Detail
is the producer who produced Drunken Love.
Okay.
He was charged with several counts, and he's in jail now, and he will be for the rest of his life.
Right.
That was the first time that I had saw, and the stories were very similar stories that like we've all heard. Mm-hmm. Girl goes to the studio. He basically says, if you want this song or you want whatever, you're going to have to do blah, 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 blah. Right. Mm-hmm. The stories range from that to outright violence and so on and so forth. Right. And so there was several women who came forward on him, including like Tinashe and other, people. Right. Mm-hmm. And he never, it came out. And it was almost like quietly he was arrested and he went to jail and he's in prison right now. And it's not like R. Kelly where it's like, don't talk about detail. It's almost like it didn't happen. Nobody brings it up. And I think right there in my speaking, see, this is why you got to talk, because when you talk, you discover your own, like, oh, this is the problem. The Me Too movement went over hip hop because of our cultural sensitivity to reporting things to the cops, to also covering up instances of misconduct in a sexual way.
Yeah, and then deeper than that, like I told you this morning, more than just being like timid to report it to the cops or covering stuff up, it's like in the black household,
it's tolerated,
and it's not spoken. What happens in this house stays in this house. Things like, you get what I'm saying? Like
I get
that.
it.
So
it's a culture of silence.
Exactly. There's a cultural root there, literally rooted in our culture, where I feel like in order for it to change culturally, we would have to come together and make it okay for when, and we see every single time
it's never okay. And no matter if she says it the day after it happened or she says it 10 years after it happened, nobody believes her, nobody cares. People think it's all about money, and I guess I'm realizing now, I'm like, oh, that's why, because there were no hashtags from R&B women who we know have dealt with things. And I feel like it was a year ago or so where Shanti came forward and said there was a producer.
Was it Irv Gotti?
Not the Irv Gotti stuff definitely was like, honey, you were groomed, babe. But then there was, she came forward and said, she didn't say the person's name. She said there was a producer who said to her, in order for me to give you this track or whatever, like this song he did for her, you need to like take a shower with me. And she was like, I'm never going to do that. And but people backlashed on her saying, say the person's name. But my whole thing is whether she said the person's name or not, y'all weren't going to believe her.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing, honey, because I've told you this. This is not just, this is a part of, I don't know what to quantify it as, but even me as a female singer who has been in the studio with producers, I have experienced the same type of things where you are being met with the proposition that if you don't adhere to the proposition, then it's not going nowhere. I believe that's
so
part
it starts
of the
to be. It's starting to feel like
it's, and that's, you know, and
I hate it, but it's starting to feel like if you to exist, and I've known this in my mind. But let me say this: as much as homophobic and transphobic people want to come to me and say you still a woman, let's be real. Men are not attracted to me in that way.
Ain't nobody saying, "Oh, I want to go take Joy down." Like that's not.
Yeah, that's not.
That's
you know
not
what I
happening.
mean? Like as much as people, well, you still a woman. Like people love to say that kind of stuff to me, and you don't look like no man, and whatever, and that's fine. But I'm trying to tell you my experience. I don't get hit on by men. Period. And it's not because they respect my sexuality. Because let me tell you something, men they be out here not caring.
Don't grow no face.
They don't care.
Yeah.
Okay. But I don't get propositions. And I think that part of the reason I don't get proposition is because my energy is definitely giving. It's not giving soft and feminine. That's not what I'm giving. Right. And so I don't in the whole of my life, after I turned maybe 18 or 19 and I started kind of living the way and looking the way I wanted to look, I think I can count on my finger how many times I've been like, a man has come up to me like, hey girl, like I don't get those kinds of propositions. So I feel like sometimes I have a blind spot. And I discover those blind spots when I'm talking to you about I have never had ever in my music career of 15 years in the music industry, and I've been around all kinds of men with power, money. No one has ever come to me and said, so Joy, and do a little something strange for a piece of change. It's never happened, right? And so I feel like I've spent a lot of my life with maybe a misogynistic view of it because I've never experienced it. I'm still a feminist at heart, and so I'm always, very empathetic and all of those things. But when I started dating you and we started doing music together, and I was even seeing how people were approaching me to get to you, I was like, oh, this is like, women are not safe in the music industry. And so, so it brings me to like, is it all just do we just throw the whole music industry out? Like we have this conversation a lot on this podcast, but I'm just like, I have to think about my industry, right? And I'm just thinking to myself, who is safe? Like, do women? Yeah, I don't understand how they function within it.
Well, and this is why I have always, once I became, once I got older. And I started to kind of just see it for what it was, and I started to see the same type of things. Because don't get it twisted, this stuff happens in the church too. Like it's not this ain't no
talk about it.
It happens everywhere. Okay, I've experienced it. I've been singing for 20 years. 25 years. Okay, and I've experienced all different types of things because women are not safe in the music industry. Period. In the entertainment industry. Period. So I think that what has to happen is that women have to, I'll just speak about myself. What I started to do is I stopped seeing opportunity in places where I was not safe. Period. Ooh. So the first time that I had something like that happen where a song was snatched from me that was paid for because, and mind you, this was a married person at that. So we can also add that in there.
It's not funny, but it's
sad.
It's sad.
Snatched from me because I was not interested in anything other than a business relationship. And see, I've never had a problem putting my foot down in that, but there are many women who it's tough.
It's tough for them. I'm going to move this shot. Keep talking.
Okay. But even for me, I had to stop seeing, oh, well, this person is connected to this person and this can get, forget that, girl. You can create your own opportunity. You can create, and I see so much, like there's a girl who is on the Impact ATL, Des Dior. She's a rapper. And I'm pretty sure the reason why she has not signed and she's doing this all independently is because she was dating the most treacherous. I'm
in your shot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
She was dating the most treacherous of them all. And I think she got to see firsthand how that the industry can be. And ever since then, I believe she is a prime example of not seeing opportunity in places where she wasn't safe.
It's almost like you have to just say no without considering what you may lose in saying no.
Because it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Correct.
It's not worth it. And if more women adapted that, then there would be nobody for the men to prey on.
They really don't feel, and that's the thing, is that I feel that women in general, Nike, don't start. I feel like women in general don't feel empowered because of how they are treated when they come forward and what happens. Like, so I saw, Tony Baker is one of my favorite comedians. He has a podcast. On his podcast, he said, stop shaming women for when they come forward. Mm-hmm. Right. And I saw somebody in the comments say that she knew a girl who came forward immediately, mm-hmm. like literally like a day after it happened. And it was a campus situation with, it was a football player and a prominent football player. Mm-hmm. She came forward. What they did was they agreed with her that it was wrong, and they like offered to do all this stuff and then had her transferred to another university. Like, it wasn't like they dealt with him. They were like, oh, we get it. This happened. This is bad. There was no consequences from him. She had to go to another college in order for her to do what she needed to do. So the point I'm trying to make is, no matter when it's said, women get dragged. And I think that women watch, it's like a vicious cycle. Women watch other women go through speaking out and what that's like, and then they decide, you know what, I'm just not going. So that's what I'm saying. It informs what you're saying, where it's like the saying no or putting yourself in position that women don't feel empowered. I have had conversations with young ladies who've been in the studio with
moving the mic.
Oh, sorry. With big, fairly big folks. I'm not going to say any names. Mm-hmm. And they've spoke to me about them feeling basically powerless in that room. Yeah. And if you feel powerless from just a musician and a creative standpoint, mm-hmm. then you're probably going to feel powerless in other instances, right?
It's going to take, the reality of it is, because it's such an embedded in far more than just culturally. It's embedded.
I have to move it from my mouth. Sorry. Go ahead.
It's embedded far more than just culturally. This is, the world doesn't believe women when women come forward. So in that case, that's why I think it's important for the women, us as women, we all have to stop putting ourselves in any type of unsafe situations. And I say that with the most care and concern as possible, because this is something that I implied on my life as well. I don't even do business dealings with people that I don't think I would be in a safe situation with. And that's how serious I am about it, because in a split moment, you can be in a situation where, you have these great ideas, you're the talent, you're the next big thing, but it's been hindered by the yes or no of you giving yourself to a person, or you allowing someone to do something to you or with you that you don't want. So personally, I believe that the only way that this would change is if it changes, if the women are the ones who start to put their foot down.
But also, I'm not going to let you just leave the work with the women. Here's the work I think men need to do.
I agree with you.
I understand what you're saying. I understand
You know
that,
what I'm
but I think we have to address it.
Yeah.
I want to address it. As a masculine party, I think that there's work that we can do.
Of course.
And because
that's where the work starts.
Oh, that's where the work starts. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I know a lot of men. I have men in my life, friends of mine, family members who are not predatory.
Of course.
Right? But here's how they add to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
They are complicit in allowing our sisters to go through this because, first of all, they never speak up about it. They got a friend in their friend group who's grimy and they know it and they don't say nothing. They still hang with that dude. Or they know questionable situations or see questionable situations and they just let it be. Like, I will say 1 in 10 dudes I know will stand up in a crowd of men and be like, what are you doing? I feel like I was in a situation in college where I was with a group of guys, and I think I may have been, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. We were helping somebody move out. I was the only female there, and I'm not of any help in terms of like picking stuff up and moving stuff, right? So there's like 5 or 6 guys there. I'll never forget this. There's like 5 or 6 or 7 guys there, and I fell asleep in like a corner of the living room on my jacket. I fell asleep. And a friend of ours who we knew came over and was like messing with me in a very innocent, it was innocent. It was not like, it wasn't in any way sexual, but he was messing with me, right? Like trying to wake me up, messing with my ears, things people do. So they're carrying a couch out, and I'll never forget, shout out to Roger Pemberton. And I will never forget, they're carrying this heavy couch, and I'm waking up out of my sleep, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, leave me alone, what are you doing? And Roger said, hold on, y'all. He dropped that couch down and he turned around and he was like, if you don't get like, when I say the level of cussing that I'm not going to say all that he said, he was like, leave her alone. Like, he was like, really, and he was very, like, he was almost upset. And I just remember feeling very safe and protected because I was vulnerable, right? I was asleep and I was vulnerable. I didn't feel that it was anything sexual, but in retrospect, I understood that he just was like, this girl is asleep. Why are you, whatever. And regardless of how I identify, especially at that time, I wasn't really understanding my gender identity. He saw that I was a girl. I was vulnerable. I'm sitting there's somebody messing. What I'm saying is, that situation in my life is the 1 time or 2 times where I have seen a man really stand up and be like, what are you doing? And when I think about the Cassie and Diddy situation and even other situations, I think about how other men in the room who are not predatory allowed questionable things to go on around them. Because one thing I know about men listen to other men, and men don't like to look bad in front of other men. And I feel like I've been in situations where I've seen men, and we've seen it together when we're with family or whatever, where like a man will check a man. Like, the women could be saying, why are you doing that? Stop. But when another man come and say, hey bro, what are you doing? Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we want to talk about it. And you can now hear all of a sudden because it's another man. So I get what you're saying about women needing to protect themselves. I just want, because the predators are going to be the predators, whether they're men or women. But what I'm asking for is those who are not, and this is literally the same exact thing as racism. We know that there are well-meaning white people who are not, like, inside of their heart hateful of black people or hateful of other ethnicities. But you know what they do? They just be quiet when somebody says a racist comment, or they just let certain things slide. All I'm saying is, I think we need to see a revolution of men checking other men for even the things that they say. And then lastly, I feel like I've talked to you about this before, like, consent is such a, to me, rudimentary, elementary concept, right?
If you were taught it.
Which is,
we're not.
And that's what I'm saying is, even in school, and I think I said this on the last episode, kids are kind of taught like, oh, if a boy likes you, he'll hit you. Or if you don't want something to be happening, like, put up with it. Like, there is no, so I think we need to, I'm going to take it all the way back. Earlier, as early on as possible, teach our kids that if you don't want something, and we could even be talking about, oh, I want to hold hands with you, like even good things. And I learned it in my relationship with you, right? I'm a very affectionate, huggy, cuddly person. You are not, right? Not to say that you don't like to hug and cuddle me, but there's a time and a place for that for you. And I think it took a year and a half. I'm being serious. It took a year and a half, 2 years.
About me, I know.
I think it took 2 years for me to be okay with, if you don't want to be hugged or touched, it's not because you don't love me. It's not because of whatever. This is consent.
Right.
If my wife doesn't want to be hugged or touched, I need to be okay with that. And I think I even there was a time where I was like so frustrated by this. Like, I wanted to just grab you and hug you anyway. And you're like, you're not going to get you would be like, you're not going to get the response you want. Like, you think that you're going to grab and hug me and I'm going to just respond in a way that you like. It's not going to happen. So I had to like talk with myself and be like, okay, if my wife is telling me she doesn't want to be hugged, she doesn't want to be touched, I have to be okay with that. And I'm saying we don't even have that level of like intelligence around consent within couples. And I had to realize, oh, I've been conditioned to feel and think that if I want to give you my love, you have to take it. You have to accept it. And you don't.
Right.
So these are the small ways in which I think you talked about this. You were like, this is all part of grape culture. Like, this is all like we're always making it easier for the predator, whatever. But I struggle with being hopeful, but also just feeling like no one is safe. And to be honest, it scares the shit out of me. And it makes me want to sometimes just not be a part of the music industry.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. I'm telling you as a woman who, you know, I've done this work for myself to ensure that I am in, you know, safe situations. At the end of the day, I don't want anybody to think that I am dismissing the responsible party and the man and giving them a pass, because that's not what's happening. But what I'm saying is that the issues that the masculine side of this have go way past just surface level, this is right and this is wrong. You have men who were never even taught consent as kids. So they have been grooming and this person has been being built since they were children.
They see consent as an offense.
Right. Well, right. But what I'm saying is that these things that we're talking about, it's just not a simple, it's easy for, you know, someone of masculine presence that was raised right to say, well, it should be just as easy as holding these people accountable, but it's not. Because if it were easy, it would be happening.
Of course. I mean, I was socialized as a female child. So what the messages I heard from my parents was protect yourself. Right. By any means necessary. It wasn't until I started getting older and I started having situations with women that I started going, oh, like you, and I'm like this. I'm such, you know, I'm a very, you know this. I'm like a nice guy. I'm like, I don't, you know how I am. Like, I'm like, look, I do not want, and I think it's because of being female. I understand what it's like to just feel unsafe. So I'm always trying to make sure. I
think it's about experience, because I think about like my cousins, my male cousins.
Yeah.
All of them, you know, have really good women in their life that raised them.
Yes.
From their mothers to their aunts. Yes. To their cousins, to their grandmothers. So every single male cousin that I have on both sides. Yes. When it comes down to how the women are dealt with in the family, how the women that they deal with in the family,
of course,
it's always the utmost respect. But
right.
that's because that's been rooted in them since they were kids, period. So I think that it's what you're saying is important, but again, it's deep. Like, it's a deep situation. So that's why I am gravitating I guess the focus to the women, because we are in control of ourselves as women. Especially, personally, I feel like you don't need to be in the industry in general if you don't have a little bit of about you anyway, because as a woman in the industry, period, these niggas is gonna look at you one way and be trying to take advantage of you
seriously.
and taking you
and honestly,
and so,
it's sad because I feel like part of the reason why, whatever, but I will say I think part of the reason why I wasn't able to progress forward in the way that I wanted to in certain instances is because I was not useful in a sexual way,
right?
And
it's the same thing for a woman that looks like me that does not allow that I put my foot down.
100%.
I've lost out on opportunities.
Of
the
course.
same thing.
And I will say this,
but you do what you're doing. You create, and that's what I'm saying.
You have to.
You have to stop seeing the opportunity in that unsafe place and go and create your own opportunity. You know who you're safe. One thing I will say, there's certain people I work with that I know I'm safe with them. You get what I'm saying? There's certain things that I've done that I know.
Yeah. Shout out to there's some guys you work with that it's like there is no problem. There's no and it's always, and you feel safe, you feel comfortable, you feel, there's a couple dudes you've introduced me to that I still even work with. It's because of that. So it's not, and that's because somebody's going to listen to this episode and go, all men. It's not all men.
No, it ain't all men.
And that's what I'm saying is it's not all men.
But we need the ones that are not. I think what Joy is trying to say and what I'm trying to say as well. In order for this barrier to be broken down, we need the men who really do understand this to step up and hold those men accountable.
And I think there are men who do understand it, but maybe they're afraid. Maybe they're afraid of being looked at a certain way.
Yeah, it's time out for that shit.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's getting so crazy. It's getting so crazy to me where it's like we can't even afford. It's already too late, but we can't even afford for you to be silent. It's so funny. Like, I see dudes comment on all type of stuff on social media, and it was some dudes. It's definitely some dudes that I know personally. I'm a little bit disappointed in because when everything happened with Kiki, when everything happened with Cassie and whatever, they have nothing to say. But there's like some dudes who I know they were speaking up and were just like, hey, women don't deserve this, whatever the case may be. And it's not even just women, it's people don't deserve. And let me say this. When you are complicit in, when you're not speaking up, it's not just about women, it's about everybody. It affects us all. And I think that I remember telling, there's a guy who like started this like parenting group on Facebook, and I'm not sure why he added me, but I think it's because at the time I was raising children. But he made some comments about how men are suffering in silence, regarding sexual harassment and rape and SA. And he made some commentary about like men hug your sons tight because they're vulnerable to predators as well. But because of the way society paints the picture of victims and the way society doesn't really like favor people who come forward, there's boys who are suffering who have been taken advantage of, and they can't come forward because they don't want to seem weak, they don't want to seem whatever. And actually, this past season of Love is Blind, which I thought was a trash season, there was a young man who came forward and talked about him being assaulted when he was like 18 or 19. It was like his
when he lost his virginity.
His virginity. And he said that whenever he would share it with people, whenever he would share it with people that it was happening, they would always say, well, how do you as a man get assaulted? And he was like, if I don't want to do it and I say no, and you force yourself on me, it's assault. And I think what they're thinking is, oh, a woman is not as physically strong as you, so how could you be forced?
Yeah, but that's like, people, listen, there are men who I'm stronger than. Yeah, at the end of the day, it don't have nothing to do with that. The people need to understand the idea of sexual assault is if I say no,
and
it still happens.
And it still happens.
And I keep saying no, and it still happens.
Yes.
I just have to say no one time.
One time.
I say no one time. If I say no and it still happens, that's assault. It don't matter if it wasn't forceful. That does not matter.
100%.
If it happens 100%. And I said no. So whether it's a man and a woman or a woman and a man, I'm not actually, I don't shy away from the conversation because I know a lot of women, not personally, but I'm just saying, I know situations. I don't want to say it like that. Not personally, but I know that there are a lot of women out there who have
100% because their thought process is, if I want it, I'm going to have it. And that's the same, and that's literally the same thing that men think. So I don't want anybody to think we're trying to exclude men from this conversation. Because when I looked on that Me Too thing, there was women, like I said, there was women on there, and what it showed was the same way men were wielding their power and getting people to do favors and whatever, the same thing that the women were doing. And for me, what we have to stop doing is making it like, I'll see in the comments on TikTok or whatever, like, yeah, you have to protect your daughters. Protect your sons.
Yeah, you have to protect. People need to be protected.
Everyone needs to be protected.
People are victims of sexual assault. It is not a man versus woman versus man thing. And that's the idea that is realistic is actually problematic. And that's the reason why we're having so much trouble breaking down these barriers in the first place, because people are not even viewing them as the same. And that's a hot mess.
100%. And I feel like
it's a hot mess.
When men come forward, I feel like I saw an anonymous interview a couple years ago of a model. He's a model in the fashion industry. And he talked about having to literally carry a knife because of the level of advances made at him, and not just advances, aggressive, like basically him having to fight people in order, not men and women, fight them off. There's a show on HBO, gosh, I forgot what it's called, but it's about like stock marketing people or stock market people, and a young lady was assaulted by a woman. The point I'm trying to say is, we have to make it a safe space for everybody to come forward. And when they come forward, we have to realize that we get it. There's a history, especially in the Black community, of Black men being accused of these things and lynched over it or killed over it. You know, Emmett Till is a product of that, right? Rest in peace, Emmett Till. It was because he supposedly whistled at this woman. It never happened. But back in the day, that was something that was used against our, you know, they were saying that the stereotype was, you know, Black men just can't help themselves when they get around white women, and they violate them. We understand the history there. We understand it is sensitive, but everybody's not lying. Right. And what what I would say is, if I had to give it a ratio, I would say it's 1 in 10 are lying, or 1 in 20.
The courage and the shame and embarrassment that you actually experience coming forward to say, and I'm not talking about at celebrity level, you know, because when you start involving money and stuff like that we're talking about something different. I'm talking about real life. When you start, what it takes for someone to actually come forward and put their business on Front Street so that they can get justice. The first thing that I'm going to do is not think about, oh, they're lying. That's not what I'm going to think about. I'm not thinking about that.
Correct.
I'm thinking about the fact that it probably took everything in them to actually come forward.
Count the cost. They had to count the cost.
To come forward and speak about this.
Yes.
And let's be clear, everyone, we live in my mindset always goes to, for a victim, when a victim comes and says that something happens to them, unless it's proven that it didn't happen, I'm going to believe them. It has to be proven that it didn't happen. Literally proven that it didn't happen for me to say.
And let me say this. In cases where, because there's a young man who this happened to, who it stopped his NFL dreams because he went to jail. You remember that?
I remember this.
In cases where it did not happen, and there's been like 3 or 4.
The accuser needs to be punished.
No, of course the accuser, yeah, of course. But what I'm saying is we see a pattern. In cases where it did not happen, the accusers come forward in really, it's interesting. I don't know if it's a spiritual thing. I'm not trying to be funny, but like in those cases, there's always a paper trail in some kind of way of proving that this was a consensual relationship, right? Like the young lady, that boy who went to jail, it had been like 15 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she couldn't live with it. Her family got $1 million settlement from the school, and she just couldn't live with herself. And she came forward and said it to him. Like she said, like she like apologized to him, and then he took her. He recorded her apology and took it to them. They had to take it off his record. It was unfortunate. The years had passed by. Yeah. He was never able to go back to the NFL. But every situation I've seen where there's like someone accuses, a lot of times those accusers can't live with themselves and it comes out. Now, we're not saying all the time. Sometimes people go to jail behind it and they go to jail for real. But 9 times out of 10, I'm going to believe the victim. And the reason why is because we know what victims go through. What's so sad, and I was going to tell you this, I think I was saying this to you the other day, is that one of the women who has accused Diddy from 30 years ago, she didn't put her name, I don't think, out there. It was like a Jane Doe situation, but of course somebody from one of these blogs found out who she is, and they went to her page, and she's like a church woman. She's like has kids, married, and like I guess to them is what looks like a respectable woman. And because she looks like a respectable woman, everybody's like, yeah, this must have happened. And so this also brings up the whole like idea that if a woman is a certain type of woman, she's more like, it's like we throw those kind of women out like trash, where we're just like, she deserved it almost. Like that's the attitude. But so because this woman is a church lady, we believe her. Like it's like
at the end of the day, let the courts do their job.
100%.
Like when it comes to these celebrities, okay, because let's be clear. With celebrities, money, resource, access, all these things, the truth is going to be found out, okay? Let them people do their job. When it comes to celebrities and all this drama, like I'm talking about the regular real life situations that are happening every day that people go through, that they don't have the fame and the accolades following them to help them get the type of broadcast or coverage that they need. That's who I'm talking about. The celebrities at the end of the day, you know, I'm not going to say it like that, but there's so many like real life things that are happening to men and women and men, and they don't have, like, it's not going viral on TikTok. They came forward at their school, and they had somebody at the school say to them, well, what did you do to let this happen? You get what I'm saying?
And the last thing that what I get from it too is like the last thing some of these victims want is for everybody to know, for it to be found out. Mm-hmm. And if we look at what happened with Cassie and we look at Keke Palmer, though they are celebrities, they weren't talking to us.
Exactly.
Keke Palmer never went up on her page and was like, "Hey, I'm charging my husband." She's never addressed us at all. People went and found the documents, and
that's another reason why we need to keep our mouth shut, because they did not enter us into the group chat.
Cassie doesn't really care how you feel, because she didn't get on her Instagram page and let us know. She went and did what her lawyers and people in her family and what they were supporting her to do. And guess what? At the end of the day, she handled it. So she really don't care how we feel, or shouldn't care how we feel. But the folks that I have known, because I have known people who have dealt with situations, those folks, the last thing they want is for people to know. And a lot of times the reason why they don't want people to know is because they don't want to be marked a liar. They also don't want people's pity. They want to move on with their lives. Exactly. And a lot of times they will secretly hold it in for years and years and years, to the point where it almost kills them. Yeah. And sometimes they speak out because they just have to. It's like it's life or death at that point.
I mean, I can imagine, especially with something like that, you are now trying to do self-work to get over it, and your therapist probably tells you
like you're gonna have
you
to
have
come
to
forward.
release this.
Yeah.
When I say release, I mean like literally a literal release. I'm not saying like release it to the public. I'm saying you have to hold this person accountable.
Yes.
You have to let it out.
Yeah.
Because I know a few people who have gone through situations as well, and even in sharing, you can tell that this is not something that they want to be reminded of every single day.
Every
it's not
single day,
something
all
that
the
they
time.
want people to identify them as or with, like, oh, you're a victim, you're this.
They don't want to be
Yeah.
seen that way. And it brings up, I think the last thing I want to say about this is, restorative justice is a process where the victim and the alleged, the person who inflicted the pain, they actually come together in a conversation, and it's like a restorative justice circle, right? And there are people who are like trained in this process, and in the process, the two parties speak with one another, and what everybody's hoping you get to is an apology.
Yeah.
But also it's like a healing situation, because the victim is able to speak about it, and the accuser, I'm sorry, the victim and the accuser is able to speak about it, but the person who inflicted the pain is also able to like understand how their actions really impacted the person, which honestly is just a great human situation. And sometimes folks actually opt for restorative justice practices instead of a trial. Like they're like, let us work through this as people. I was reading an article about a young lady who went through a restorative justice circle with someone who assaulted her. Y'all, Nike, we're going to do a Nike cam because he's just, y'all have to see him. I don't know what he wants.
Attention.
Okay. Attention. Okay. So the woman accuses this guy of SA, right? And it was a date situation. Okay. And their remembrance of the night was very different. Okay. Right. So let's talk about this, because I think there's two different types of people. I think there's predators who mean people harm and who are maliciously looking for vulnerable and weak people to hurt. Right? And they can't help themselves. They want to hurt you. And then I think there's a second type, especially when we talk about SA. When we talk about date grape, okay, y'all, we're going to let him out. Look at date grape. These are typically men who, I think the definition of it is that it's someone who you have a friendly relationship with,
or you decided to go on a date with them,
and your there was consent to a date and nothing else, right? And so her recollection of it was she said no, she told him no, and he kept going. His recollection, he did not even remember it like that. He thought that they had a great time. And I feel like when Me Too came out, there was a lot of guys who were like, I don't understand what was, like, I don't get what was wrong. And a lot of times the men are not in, or the I won't say the men, but I'll say the person who inflicts the pain, they're not an awareness of the power dynamic. If it's a boss, they're not aware of this. But just because you need what do they call that? An enthusiastic yes, instead of, if she's saying nothing, you shouldn't take that as a yes. Like they're not situationally aware, right? So they had a restorative justice circle. And she came to the circle, and victims are able to basically say whatever it is they want to say. And she came to the circle and she talked about her experience that night, and she was crying and she was carrying on. And do you know he started crying because he did not, he really was, and this is why it's a culture. That's what you're talking about. He really was blind to the ways in which he ignored her saying no. And so a lot of I think American men live in that gray area of, you need to be looking for an enthusiastic yes, my guy.
I'll say this though, honey, as the feminine presenting person between the two of us, since the Me Too movement, there's been a lot less of that. And what's happened, no, I'm being serious, and what has been a whole lot less of that, because I can even remember like back when I was like in high school, we're talking 2008 to 2011, so way before the Me Too movement, but I can remember there was a gray area, that gray area you're talking about, where people, just because it's not a blatant no, not taking silence as a no and things of that. I feel like the Me Too movement put a lot of people on notice of, if it's not a pleasant, consensual experience, no weird vibes, nothing, because we know what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? If it's not that, then it's not.
Yeah, if it's not,
okay.
Woo, then it's nothing.
And I think that a lot of post Me Too has just been predatory, and I'm just be completely honest with you, because that the Me Too movement was, I mean, I don't know if I want to use the word iconic, but it was a movement that it put a lot of people on notice, and it was a shift. Yeah.
I feel like I feel like I saw men on Facebook and Instagram being like, oh, I don't even want to be alone with a woman. Good.
Yeah, good. And that's exactly. So what it did was it took the ones that, you know, would find themselves in a situation like that guy.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, okay, well, if it's not that, I'm just not even going to play around with it. Because I used to see a lot of people say, I don't want to get Me Too'd, you know.
Yeah.
And it was like, people would joke about it, but it's like, okay, keep joking. Yeah. It's fine. As long as you won't notice for it. So post that, I think it's just been a lot of predatory stuff, honey, where, you know, these situations we talk about in the studio, and you know, men and women, you know, using their power to get people in situations where they know they don't have any other choice but to just kind of go along with it. And it's unfortunate, but that's my experience.
And let me tell you this, know. These conversations are necessary. I wholeheartedly believe that someone somewhere is going to listen to one of these episodes and feel seen. Yeah. Or go home and start treating themselves better, or putting more boundaries up, or doing whatever is necessary to protect themselves. Or there's some guy who's going to hear one of these episodes and be like, dang, I need to stop doing this, that, and the third. Predators are predators. But I'm saying people who don't understand that their actions are not, like, this is not the correct way to go about certain things. Mm-hmm. So we're going to keep talking about it. It may feel like it's tense and it's whatever, but we're going through, and this is the last thing we're going to talk about, the veil is being pulled off and has been since the pandemic.
When you have so much abuse in the media, and you have kids who are seeing situation after situation after situation being reported, you know, you got kids who follow the Shade Room. They're seeing all of this stuff happen. Like, outlets like this, we have to talk about it, because you have kids out there that don't know that that's not okay.
They don't know.
And so we have to continue to talk about it. Period, point blank. We have to talk about it. It's tough, it's hard, but we have to.
No, we have to talk about it, and through talking about it, my prayer and my hope, like I said, is somebody listen to it and they're like, you know what? Let me check in with so and so. Let me make sure so and so, because maybe it's not you. Maybe it's your cousin. Maybe it's somebody like that's what I think. And this is the last point that we're gonna and then we'll move on to soft spaces. But Teyana Taylor never announced, again, another situation. She was not speaking to us. We were not a part of these conversations. Right. But someone, I'm not going to say the Shade Room because it could have been another source, but someone found her divorce. Okay, sure. The Shade Room found it. Someone found her divorce papers. It's all public record. Right. And basically she is accusing her husband, Iman Shumpert, who they have a beautiful family, 2 beautiful daughters, of being a narcissist. And basically
backtrack. There's a series of events that has happened with Teyana Taylor and Iman Shumpert. I want to say at the top of this year, there had been rumors that they had been splitting. I follow her. I noticed they wasn't kicking it the way, just by following
there
her.
Were no pictures of him.
I noticed it. Okay. I noticed it a while ago. Personally, as a fan, and knowing her and just her personality, if that was a decision that was made, I knew that it was something bad that happened. But she had always been of the sentiment of her personal business ain't for y'all.
It's nobody's business.
It always had been that. So in her divorce filing, her reasoning was that he had narcissistic ways.
It was, he basically, He would gaslight her. He would
nothing was ever good enough.
Nothing was ever good enough. And as her career ascended and she got bigger and bigger, he got more and more.
It got worse. She felt he was jealous of her.
He was jealous and all these different things. Okay, so she never told us that, but it was in the court documents. The Shade Room gets the court documents. They share it with us. Iman Shumpert, his lawyer, he doesn't make a statement. His lawyer makes a statement and says, Mr. Shumpert is focusing on the his children and the them making an amicable co-parenting relationship. Teyana comes back and then says, stay out my business. She makes a statement and says, I never told y'all nothing. Stay out my business. Let my private life be private. Right. We're working on.
Right. I mean, she had to come out when they were accusing him of cheating. This is, you know,
yeah. And when she came out,
she was like, we've been split up. That's my best friend. We co-parent. What I can appreciate about Teyana Taylor is that she is letting us know, I don't mess with y'all. I don't do
tell
the blogs.
my business.
I don't tell my business. I don't get on live and tell. So leave me be.
Leave me
alone.
100%. And I think she's handled it well. It's just unfortunate she's a celebrity, so people know her business. But one of the things that came out of it, and I think is related to this whole conversation we're having about kind of like the veil being removed and there being a shift. I saw a lot of comments and responses to what her, not what she told us, but what was discovered in her court documents. I saw a lot of responses basically like, not everybody is a narcissist. Stop calling everybody a narcissist. Y'all need to stop using that word. Y'all done found a new word and now you're accusing everybody of being a narcissist. And here's what I want to say about information. Okay. We're in the age of information. We have so many platforms where people can share knowledge and information with one another. One of the beautiful things about that is that people who had no way of getting their, message out to the world now have a way to do that. Right. You know them African boys, that one African boy who could sing his butt off? And I remember you looking at his page the other day and you was like, oh, they got some money now. Because of the internet, right? When we first saw him, they was in dirt and ditches singing their ass off. And now they got money. Why? The internet. So the good part of it, right? We talk about this on the show a lot. Good part of it is people can get their message out. They can share good information. We have YouTube University. You can learn how to be a whole graphic designer on your own from YouTube, right? There are success stories. People just get on YouTube and learn things from other people. Right now, you can go get the information you need to be successful, and it's so accessible. Right. The other side is we don't have to corroborate. People could get up here and tell lies, and we don't have to check the source. So when I think about this situation where people are saying stop using the word narcissist, whatever, I have survived narcissistic abuse. I still have narcissists in my family that I deal with, right? What people need to understand about it is this. I really think it's okay. I think it's okay for you to call everybody a narcissist. I'm going to tell you why. If that makes you more conscious and makes you protect yourself from going through what I have gone through or what other people go through, because they don't know what to call. If you don't know what to call something and you don't know what someone's tactics are, you're always going to be weak and vulnerable to them. Right. And had I been informed as a 24-year-old kid, I would have been able to better protect myself from some of what I experienced. I was complicit in my own problems because I was not equipped and I did not understand what it is. So I'm actually okay with if it's toxic at all, call them a narcissist, because if that's going to make you go and understand what gaslighting is, understand what love bombing is, understand how to protect yourself against, getting wrapped up in conversations with them, sleep deprivation. These are the tactics of narcissists. Sleep getting you so tired. They're arguing with you at 2:00 in the morning. You're so tired. I know these tactics. I've been through them. If you don't know, I remember making a phone call to my therapist probably, I'm going to say right at the beginning of my separation, and crying on a voicemail to my therapist and explaining to her what was going on and saying, I think that I'm being verbally and mentally abused. And she called me back 2 hours later and said, if you think that, then it's happening. I had started to become awake and aware of certain things. And it wasn't until I was out of the relationship I was able to name and claim what was going on. Right. So what I'm simply saying is, it's okay for people to be educated. But what I think is, the reason why people don't like the word and why people don't like people being named that is because they don't want people to know what their tactics are. It's harder for you to manipulate when people are prepared for what you're coming with.